Tracy, that we go ahead and get started.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, everyone, we want to welcome you to Resources for Your Downtown. Your Colorado Main Street team here pulled this presentation together in response to just kind of the overwhelming demand we had for our Main Street Open for Business grant. So this is just going to be a brief overview. Probably some of the funding will seem familiar to you. Hopefully some of it's new and you learned some things, but it's going to be other resources similar to what we offered for preservation and energy projects for your commercial buildings on Main Street. It is going to be a whirlwind of information, but we will be sending you this presentation afterwards. The final slide has all of the links to all of the programs we'll be mentioning. And we will also be asking you throughout the webinar, which of these topics you would like us to explore in more depth in the future. As we mentioned, as people were coming on, feel free to turn on your video. We are recording the webinar, put things into chat, but we'll hopefully have time at the end for some questions or for you to explore some of the things that you've done in your community that are similar. But we will be kind of going fast and furious to just kind of give you an overview of a lot of different resources out there. My name is Tracy Stoffel. I think we know most of you on the webinar today. I am the Main Street Specialist here at DOLA. I come to DOLA I came about 3 years ago now, but with 13 years of experience at the Colorado Municipal League and 5 years of experience with our statewide historic preservation nonprofit, Colorado Preservation, Inc. Gail?
Well, hi everyone. I'm Gail Langley. I've had the privilege of being the Main Street Coordinator at DOLA for over 4.5 years. And it's been a whirlwind ride and just a pleasure, and the opportunities that have presented itself and what we're able to bring to all of our communities across the state have just been unprecedented. So welcome this morning.
Hey there, I'm Larry Lucas. I'm a licensed architect and I serve as your Main Street architect across the state. I've been with DOLA almost 4 years, and I've been in the role of Main Street architect for almost 11 years, working in Oklahoma for some years before coming here. But thanks for being here.
Hi everyone, I'm Will Cundiff. I'm the grants financial administrator for the Main Street team. I've been at DOLA for just under a year, joined last December. Previously, I was working with Downtown Colorado Inc. for 4 years on various planning and grant-related community development projects and events. It's great to be here. Good to be on the Main Street team. And just a little update on our Main Street Open for Business program. We had pretty overwhelming success and amount of applications given the limited window and the scope of the grant. We had 48 applications from across the state with over 380 buildings in total requesting facade or energy improvements. And 50% of those building or businesses were in that disadvantaged small business enterprise category, which is just great to see. And with just under $6 million available, we had people ask for over 21 million, which is great and hopefully bodes well for the future.
Oops, sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to pop up our first poll here, and my polling session is inactive. Well, that is really a shame because we had all of these polls that we put in, and it is not. I am currently not in Colorado, and so for whatever reason, it's not liking where I'm polling from.
I think I can launch it. Would you
like? Okay, that would be great. Well, thank you.
Perfect. Takes a team.
Will, are you able to get that launched, or am I just not seeing it?
Yeah, no, I'm seeing it.
Oh, okay,
Did you have
great.
it pop up?
Yeah,
Okay,
it popped up. Yeah.
Okay, so everyone, we're just kind of asking if you would be interested in applying again. If you're just plain not interested, maybe it's not a good fit for your community, or if it was too much work and you'll pass, please keep in mind that with this, we are kind of hoping we will have more time in the future for this, but we did award 13 general grant applications. There is a press release out and it's available on the DOLA website if you are interested in seeing who received that funding. And I believe it's representing over 100 buildings Again, happy to be helping out those that we can, but sad for those of you who did not receive the funding and are hoping to get that again in the future.
And all the polling questions came up at one time, but we're going to work through those one section at a time. So you can just keep that open, and at the end, please submit.
Yeah, I kind of clicked on one just to see if it worked. I think we have to go through the whole thing before you can submit.
Oh, that's a drag. And maybe just kind of minimize, and then at the end you can let us know. I think we try to make it clear what slide we're on. This is our first foray into using polls here at Colorado Main Street, and obviously I set something up inappropriately. So,
It's fine.
So we'll go ahead and move on here.
Well, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Main Street program first for those folks that are on the call that may have just gotten a little snippet of what the program is if you applied for MSOB funding. But the Main Street program was actually launched in 1980 as a subsidiary for the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And it is a national movement with over 1,600 participating communities across the country. Colorado is one of the states. The philosophy centers around bringing your community together around a 4-point framework, approach, and methodology. The first point is organization. That is the foundation of the program. Main Street is the voice of the community, the business owners, and key stakeholders in working in tandem with the local government. Next is design, working towards getting your downtown in tip-top shape and transforming the physical appearance of your assets. Design is your sense of place and your sense of pride in the community. Next is economic vitality. Main Street is typically the center of commerce and the center of activity and your hub. Main Street helps you focus your efforts on incentives and financial tools to support your existing businesses. It creates a sense of vibrancy and a sense of vitality in your community. And last is the point, promotion. This positions your downtown as the center of hub and activity, and often as a celebration of your history and heritage. Many of our small towns celebrate their origin through local events that focus on how their foundation and community was established. And one of my favorites is Stephanie's hometown of Meeker, which has their Sheepdog Days annually every year. Next is our services and benefits. We offer a wide range of services, ranging from awarding small mini grants and scholarships to providing consultant services. We also leverage these funds from partner agencies and organizations to stretch the dollars farther. We routinely partner with CDOT, AARP, CTO, and the Office of Economic Development and International Trade to help our communities connect to other funding streams and augment our mini grant funds, or to apply for other grant opportunities. Our consultant services, in the past 4 years, we've done a variety of projects for our communities. We funded things like the completion of construction bid drawings for the park in Ridgeway, a parking study in Leadville. We are doing a gateway design for Rangeley, as well as helping folks develop their brand, their website, and their marketing materials. Today's Zoom session and going through the polling question is going to help guide the future of what resources we bring to communities across the state. So please do answer the polls that's coming up and submit when we're done. And as always, staff, all 4 of us are here to help any community connect with resources and offer advice or help in any way we can.
Okay, and we once again mentioned the polling and survey. And so we do have a question as to whether you would like to learn more about being a Main Street community, if your town already is an official community, or if you're not interested. This is anonymous, you won't hurt any feelings, however you answer these, but we do, as Gail mentioned, we do want to know what you want us to explore more depth in the future. So when you are looking at that survey, please let us know what your thoughts are on just the Main Street program in general.
Colorado Main Street's Heritage Energy Program, it's a strategy that combines the benefits of good historic preservation with energy incentives. while working towards an overall goal of a more sustainable Main Street district. We created this essentially to bring better incentives to small communities where often building owners don't have the time or the knowledge of even what incentives are available. The strategy is very simple. Essentially, by keeping sound preservation practices first, we can capitalize on key incentives like the historic tax credits and the state historical fund grants. This is after we first obtain incentives on energy efficiency and renewable energy work, which also increases the amount of tax credits you can collect. So the idea is putting one before the other and then maximizing on what you can collect in the end. We're going to talk more about this strategy later. Pictured here are 3 Heritage Energy pilot projects that are currently underway. The Bank Building in Ridgeway is on the left. The Fox West Theater in Trinidad is in the middle, and the Leadville Herald Democrat buildings on the right. Current works in progress for phase 1, which includes facade restorations of each property. So we're excited to see how that goes.
Thanks, Larry. And so as Larry was mentioning, the Heritage Energy Project kind of got kicked off and was official earlier in 2021 in January, long before we knew that we would have any funding to implement it. And so that's what we're going to explore in terms of, and that's kind of what Main Street Open for Business was kind of preservation and energy together. So we're going to explore some of those other funding sources along those same lines for your businesses downtown. Hopefully you all are already familiar with the State Historical Fund, which provides grants for the preservation of historic structures in Colorado. And this can be from facades to the electrical work inside a building, such as this example in Georgetown recently funded. Buildings do generally need to be designated as historic at some level, local, state, or national. And work on privately owned buildings requires a 50% match. And a non-profit or a government entity does have to apply in their behalf. There is also historic property tax credits, and this is really kind of directed toward private property owners. Rehabilitation on certified historic buildings, so again, does need to be designated, that are used for income producing purposes can earn up to 20% in federal tax credits and 20 to 35% in state tax credits. You can see in this example here in St. Cloud, it can be a significant amount of money. They applied for $1 million in tax credits for rehabilitation. Oops. And we mentioned being locally designated, opening up some of this funding resources. That's kind of done through the Certified Local Government Program, or CLGs. This is a way to establish a process to identify, preserve, and promote the historic places that tell your local story. As I mentioned, local designation can open access to the grants and tax credits that we mentioned. And CLGs also have grant funds that are available to them for historic surveys, planning, nominations, and educational activities. We have another survey question in there, and this one is multiple choice. You can select more of them. If you would like to see us provide a webinar in the future that's kind of directed more specifically on any of these resources or all of them, just check SHF, tax credits, CLGs, or let us know that you're not interested in any of these topics. And that can be for whatever reason. Maybe you already leverage all of them, or just don't feel that it's a great fit for your community, but we would like to know that. Like I said, we know that this is a kind of a just 10,000 foot view of many things, but we're happy to dive into any of these into more detail that interest you.
Get to the energy funding piece now. And first of all, let's talk about CPACE. It means Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy, and it's a financing program that allows commercial building owners essentially to finance energy saving improvements at lower interest rates. The interesting part about this one is that it actually is a non-recourse loan, meaning it's something that stays with the property even through the sale of the property. So it's actually assessed, the repayment is assessed on your property taxes. And the idea is that the repayment is actually offset by your energy savings. And so that's really the big picture goal, is that you're getting basically a newer, more updated building, more energy efficient, and you're not having to pay for it. So through smart financing, doing some good ROI analysis, that can actually happen. Here's an example of the Florence Brewing Company. It's actually a rather large project. Most CPACE projects need to be rather large. because you actually are financing directly as the property owner with the lending entity. And so you don't want to have a real small project because your APR is going to be higher with all the origination costs and things like that on the loan. So they don't really want to finance small projects either. So generally your projects need to be around $250,000 and up to even make it palatable for the lending entity. But yeah, big project in Florence. They did pretty much everything with this. So it's going to be neat to see how it turns out. Also, so a brand new one, and I really would emphasize new because there are really no examples of projects yet done in Colorado, but it is active. And the Colorado Clean Energy Fund, it's a nonprofit green bank. It's the first green bank in Colorado, and it's one of only 21 green banks in the United States. It's essentially a revolving loan fund that takes on smaller projects than CPACE, but it does essentially the same thing. They can actually finance down to about $25,000, which is a nice energy retrofit. Maybe you're going to get new doors and windows. Maybe you need a new heating and cooling system, and potentially a new roof. Those things kind of separately, maybe you could fund. And the way it works here, and the reason they're able to finance lower amounts, is that unlike CPACE, where the lender's financing directly with the owner finances with CCEF through their revolving loan program. And then CCEF takes that money and they pool it together with a lot of other smaller loans or larger loans, which they can do as well, and then sells that to folks that want to buy that debt. Then they replenish the loan fund by doing that. It's a very new, very innovative project. I would, go check out their website. There's not a ton of information right now, but if you're interested in this, please reach out to me or the program itself. So maybe you'll be the first projects in Colorado. I hope so. We don't really have any good examples, but here's an example of, I would say, a larger project in Connecticut, and where they, finance their water heater and high efficiency boilers.
It looks like Jillian has a question, Larry.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't see the chat.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I put my hand up. Sorry, I type really slowly. Do you know what the interest rates look like with that?
Yeah, so what I've heard, and I don't think there are finals on all this, but so for CCEF, it's a 15-year loan, and I believe it's around 5%. So that's kind of what you can look at. And we're going to go through an example later on with this particular loan, just to see how it works. So Rural Energy for America program. This is something we've just been learning about recently. It's a federal program through the USDA, and it offers guaranteed loans and some grants for agriculture producers and rural small businesses. And it's very directly geared towards renewable energy and energy efficiency. It is a good program for small businesses to take advantage of. Again, we don't, as Main Street, have a lot of experience with it yet, but it's something that we're willing to tackle with you. We'd love to come alongside and work through the process. There is sort of a funding cycle that's annual. Right now is a good time to start looking at this program if you're wanting to potentially apply for a grant. I think it's the late spring whenever they actually bring in applications. So let us know if we can help you with that. And here's an example in Yuma. They replaced all their light fixtures. The cost of that was $51,000. They reduced their energy expenditure, and it equaled, I'm a little bit, at the time of the application, the cost per kilowatt was this much, equaling $11,400 on energy costs. So annual savings will pay back in 4.5 years. And that's pretty typical of lighting projects. They pay back pretty quick. So that's interesting to see that we can get that done through the federal government.
Okay, and so as we mentioned, we would love to know if you want to learn more about the various energy projects, CPACE for those larger projects, CCEF for the smaller projects and new program, or bring in some people from USDA to talk a little bit about REAP, or if you're not interested in any of these topics to pursue. And I will go ahead and let Larry dive into a little bit more depth about how these all can be stacked together.
Sure. Okay, so this is an example, and I'm sorry, I'm not an accountant and I haven't done this before, but I wanted to lead you through how a potential project could work with CCEF. First of all, this would look completely different. These numbers would definitely be net positive if you applied for a state historical fund grant and were awarded it. It is a little bit more challenging for private property owners than it would be for, say, a town or a not-for-profit entity, but it is something that can happen, often partnering with them. But let's go back to the point of we need a loan, we need to do some energy efficiency improvements, and we want to be able to pay back our loan based on the savings that we're receiving. First of all, we're just going to approach this at a very high level of how do we pay this back using tax credits. So keep in mind, this is not really even considering how much we're going to save in energy. So I believe this will all be net positive. So keep a positive frame of mind as we work through this. So let's just say we borrow $50,000 from CCEF. On that loan, you would actually owe $4,740 would be what your loan payment would be per year. Now, if you get your building designated, either through the state, local, or national register, you can qualify for historic preservation tax credits in Colorado of up to 35%. It's 35% in rural communities, which almost all of our Main Street communities, if not all, are in rural communities, which are in counties less than 50,000 people. So you would automatically receive, I say automatically, there is a lot of paperwork that goes with this. So you have to really have a heart for it and be willing to work the system a little bit. I would give yourself a solid year to complete the paperwork on the state and federal. And we'll talk a little bit later, there are people that can help you with that. But $17,500 would come back into your pocket. And that money, in the end, well, first the federal income tax credit, that's an income tax credit. It's directly offsets your federal income tax. So you'd get 20% back. So at 50, you'd get $10,000 back. And you can carry that forward up to 20 years. What you have involved with tax credits, for the Colorado historic tax credit, you can actually sell them immediately upon completing the project. There is an expense to that. So at 90 cents on the dollar, you would owe $1,750 to do that, which is a pretty average cost. It could cost 85, maybe you get a little better 91, but that's what you're looking at. One thing you can do is you can actually pay a historic preservation tax credit consultant a amount of money, and this is just a very rough estimate, $4,000 being for just maybe the state tax credit, could be a little lower. And then there's an economy of scale if you actually do the federal tax credit as well. So it might only cost, say, $5,000. Okay, so below. Let's only consider the Colorado historic tax credit and our $50,000 loan. We're automatically going to spend the money on the tax credit consultant. We're going to syndicate the loan. In the end, we're going to cash out. So now you're actually sorry here, 17.5. So that's what you have minus those two expenses. It gives you $11,750 in your pocket. One thing that's amazing about the CCEF program and their loans is that they will allow you to re-amortize a loan, not really when you want to, but I mean, they're at a point that you can do this. So at the end of year one, you could potentially re-amortize to get a lower loan payment. So instead of looking at this $4,740, if you've gone after the Colorado instead of a loan, you'd be down to $3,630. Now, if you consider the offset to your federal income tax of $667 per year, which would be the $10,000 divided by 15, you would actually really net out of pocket only $2,963 per year. So that looks a lot better than $4,700, doesn't it? Then we haven't even considered energy cost savings on your utilities. To the right, we're actually considering the federal tax credit as well, and you can run through those numbers there. Again, we're going to provide the slides, but you can reduce your actual yearly out-of-pocket all the way down to $2,200 per year. So that's $183 per month after essentially to claim a $50,000 loan, and that's pretty good. And that's, like I say, I think you could offset the rest if you do smart energy improvements. So you would be net positive out of pocket potentially.
Thanks, Laurie. That was an awful lot in one slide, but it is kind of what the whole approach is for Heritage Energy, is ways to both preserve a building and save energy, reduce carbon footprint without being much out of pocket. This could certainly be explored more, but so we would like to hear from you, whether you would like to hear that from us. We would certainly get a tax expert in for that. Or maybe you already know enough or leverage this resource, or go, nope, that just seems too much and don't think it's helpful. We would love to know.
Few other potentially useful tools, depending on your situation, are business improvement districts, downtown development authorities, and urban renewal authorities. And if you really want to learn about these more, I highly recommend contacting Colorado Municipal League or Downtown Colorado Inc. Because they could really help you out with that. But essentially, business improvement districts, very flexible entity that could help fund infrastructure projects and operation organization, can assess a mill levy on commercial properties within a boundary. Downtown development authorities, similar, they can use tax increment financing or a mill levy, and as well can help fund public improvements for your downtown or the area and help provide services. And then urban renewal authority can use tax increment financing and over a period of 20 years can help fund different improvements.
Thank you, Will. And again, we have another question on whether you would like to learn more about this. Maybe you've learned it from CML or DCI in the past, or already have a bid, DDA or URA, or otherwise leverage general funds somehow, or if you don't think that this will work for your community.
Yeah, and there are also facade programs, and a lot of different communities across the state run these. I'm sure some of you run these in your program, in your community as well. And essentially, there are different ways and scopes you can do this, but there are facade grants that are funded from the general fund, or could be generated from one of those BIDs, DDAs, URAs, to help fund facade improvements for different businesses. So maybe you could set it up where it's a 50-50 cash matching basis with a certain cap on it allowed per building or business. But you could really have that set up to how it works best in your community. And yeah, a lot of communities have this: Granby, Canyon City, Brush, Montrose, Meeker. It's a really useful program.
Thanks, Will. So yeah, let us know if you'd like to learn more about how to set up a local facade program. We certainly have people on the call here we know that have them that we could tap into. We've been learning a lot about doing this on the statewide level in the past few months. Let us know if you already have a facade program, or if you just don't think that this would work on a local level for you.
Okay, keeping with the whirlwind, the next thing we're going to talk about is small business assistance through the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. The Rural Opportunity Office basically supports rural communities across Colorado with a focus on supporting entrepreneurs, businesses, and manufacturers. The office consists of 3 Rural Opportunity Representatives, or RORs, that live and serve in the southern, western, and eastern regions of the state. They are an experienced and trained staff that can connect you to the RTAP program, which I'll talk about on the next slide, the SBDC network, the Minority Office, and the Colorado Employee Ownership Office. They have also partnered with Manufacturers Edge, and that's just been in the last couple of years, who is a leading provider of coaching and consulting services to help you transform manufacturing opportunities in your community. They have a professional team of engineers and business professionals who work directly with leadership to identify challenges facing or impacting economic growth opportunities in your community. The next is the Rural Technical Assistance Program, RTAP. Many of you might have known this. It was formerly known as Blueprint 2.0. I know Meeker took advantage of that particular opportunity. It provides free technical assistance, consulting, and funding to help rural communities create economic development strategies. In 2021, the program format switched slightly to a 3-phased approach. The goal of the revised approach is to expand the program beyond providing just education and project development to actually looking towards implementation. You know, that missing link that always seems to happen with a strategy or a plan is, you know, how do you connect to funding streams? The program will help you create metrics for success that align with your community's goals, and that'll give you accountability and verifiable impact. So the 3 phases of the new project is RTEP for education, RTOP for outreach, and RTIP for implementation. So watch their website for more information, which will be soon coming on the program rollout, the eligibility, etc. And if you guys are interested in this, it's a wonderful program. We would be more than happy to get Aurora to come on and walk you through the program specifically to help and see if it meets your needs. Oh, I'm up next again. Okay, the Rural Jumpstart Grant and Tax Credit helps new businesses start in or move into rural economically distressed areas and hire new employees. This program is relatively new too. To be eligible, businesses can't compete with similar businesses in the county or adjacent economically distressed counties, but the program does provide grant and tax credits to businesses. The tax relief amounts are dependent upon the business location. But for example, if a business is located in a rural jumpstart zone, businesses that start up can receive $20,000 for a newly established business, plus up to $2,500 per new hire. And if you're located in a just transition community, businesses can receive up to $40,000 as a newly established business and up to $5,000 for new hire. And the tax benefits include relief to the businesses on state income taxes, state sales and use tax, and personal property taxes. But the employee can also get some relief on state income taxes. The Colorado legislature also created an enterprise zone program to encourage development in economically distressed areas of the state. There are 16 designated enterprise zones that have high unemployment rate, low per capita income, or slow population growth. Local enterprise zone administrators manage their respective enterprise zones, and we can help connect you with that, or you can pull up OEDIT's website. There will be a link in the resources that will be attached to find out who you might want to talk to in your particular area. I'm up again. Small business relief. Most of you probably are familiar with the Small Business Development Center. They are dedicated to helping existing and new businesses grow and prosper in Colorado by providing free and confidential consulting at no or low cost. If you haven't connected with your SBDC location around the state, please try to do that. They have a team of business experts that are ready to help you create and retain jobs, secure loans, increase sales, help with business plans, win government contracts, and obtain certifications and more. The SBDC combines information and resources from federal, state, and local governments with those of the education system and private sector to meet specialized and complex needs of the small business community. Consulting experts work in partnership to provide entrepreneurs with crucial and critical information that can mean the difference between success and failure.
Thanks, Gail. We'll give you a little bit of a break here because I think you're up on the next 2 slides as well. So if you just let us know which of these OEDIT programs you're interested in hearing more about. We're, again, happy to put you in contact with people or to arrange a webinar so that we can explore these in more depth. Just find that on your poll and let us know. And if Gail has gotten her sip of water or coffee, we'll move on.
Perfect. Okay, the next is the Colorado Resiliency Office, and they reside within DOLA. And you can see on this slide, you can't read it, but they have an absolutely fabulous website that will be in the resources in the appendix. that is kept up to date with any and all known stimulus funding available that's out there. And it is very comprehensive. It crosses all state and partner agencies. But one of the other things that the Colorado Resiliency Office did at the onset of COVID is they started monthly peer exchange share sessions. And there are a few people on this call that actually has participated in those. It is a wonderful opportunity to share case studies, challenges, ideas, and successes amongst your peers. And quite recently, the focus has been really dominated by the ARPA funds, with folks having question about the Treasury guidance. So there's been a lot of conversations going on about how to navigate eligible expenses and reporting.
And thank you, Christy, for dropping that link into chat.
Thank you, Christy. She's been quite active on the peer exchange. I'd love to hear her feedback on that because she has actually guided and led many of those conversations. Do you care to share anything, Christy?
Sorry, I haven't really been involved in CRO's discussion. I just wanted to share the link for folks.
Oh, I was talking to the other Christy that's on the call.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. We're moving a little bit faster than what we envisioned since we can't do the polls. So we should have a lot of time here at the end. And Christy, if you stay on, we may have you just speak impromptu about 1271 if I don't mean to put you on the spot though. But let me close out with another opportunity that's one of my favorites to the Colorado Resiliency Office, and that's the Rural Economic Development Initiative, also known as READY. They've had 2 grant cycles this year and had a little bit more funding put into the pot. They are going to have a spring round on this, and as it stands now, they will be offering about $750,000. You're eligible if you're a rural community, a local government, but a local government can also partner with housing authorities, EDCs, nonprofits, private employers, and tribes. The 4 goals of the READY program is to increase jobs and retain jobs. It helps and can help with capacity building. It also is to improve economic resiliency and sustainability. And it also supports entrepreneurial ecosystems. And just to give you an example of a few of the recent awardees, besides the one that's here on the slide, is Steamboat got a childcare expansion facility in the last round. The town of Center was able to expand their water and sewer system. Lincoln County got funded for a co-working space. Go Jillian. In Region 10, as you can see here, is a new entrepreneurial program in West End Development to develop strategies. And then last is one that probably really touches my heart in a lot of ways with the impact of COVID, and that was Montrose got funded to build a community kitchen, which was sorely needed and identified in the community. So those are just some of the examples of the variety of projects that READY can fund. And I would love to bring in a person, Kate or someone from the CERO staff to talk a little bit about this when it gets closer, maybe after the first of the year, if you're interested, to talk about this to help prep you to submit an application.
And Gail, did you see the question from Deidre about, it sounds like READY is no longer so limited to communities that have lost jobs?
No, it's really expanded a little bit into the other areas, and they got another infusion of funding this year. So if it hits the 4 criteria, jobs, capacity building, economic resiliency, sustainability, or supporting a new ecosystem for entrepreneurs, those are all eligible projects.
And so if you could let us know, again, if you would like to learn just more about CRO in general and making your community more resilient, doing a deeper dive with guidance from people who put together that website on what those recovery resources look like, and or the READY program, or none of the above, please do let us know. And then since you all have the polls open anyway, we would kind of like to know, did you get anything from this 42 minutes that we've just kind of did a scatter shot of resources at you? If you're going to follow up independently, like I said, we will be sending this out. You can see here on this slide that we do have the links all ready for you. So hopefully you didn't try to scramble to take too many notes. If you are looking forward to having in-depth webinars on these topics, or again, it is anonymous, no feelings will be hurt. If you really didn't find it helpful, but you did like these really cool pictures, most of them being our Main Street communities.
Absolutely. And with that, we have a little bit extra time. We can certainly allow anyone that wants to unmute and share your experiences. Maybe you have some like Jillian or Sarah with CRO or with the Ready Grants. And then Christy, if you would like to say a few words about 1271, or at least maybe put a link in the resources in the chat box.
I can share about my Ready Grant experience, if that's helpful to everyone. We have a co-working space that we're developing in Hugo. It is in our Main Street district. It's an old blighted Texaco station in a highly visible area. And we were awarded a Ready Grant to help with that project. So we're very excited about it. The components, definitely creating new entrepreneurial work streams. We've been very limited in Hugo, both on place and space to do business, and really what the economy is downtown. We've all been losing our downtown businesses, and this in a location in a rural community is a very impactful project. I think many of us are experiencing communities moving out from higher populated areas out into our rural communities, and there's just not a great space in a lot of our small towns to actually do business and have economy in the worst way to say. But so we're very excited to be able to do that. It's going to be a highly impactful project over the next year. So I don't know if I can answer any questions about the application process, but there is definitely, they change questions every year, but I would definitely recommend working with the Colorado Resiliency Office on some of those questions. There are some technical questions about resiliency, and I think that language is a little bit different to what we're used to in other DOLA funded grants, like the energy efficiency grants and things like that. That resiliency language is something I'm still learning and trying to navigate through, and there's a pretty big portion of that, at least last year there was. So I would definitely work with the staff in the Resiliency Office to help make sure the language is in line with what we all write things differently. So that was a very helpful experience for me on the resiliency component on the grants. So yeah, that's helpful.
Thank you, Jillian.
Do a quick plug for 1271 if you want.
Please.
There's our website in the chat, but the Community Development Office has over $40 million of a new state stimulus program to address affordable housing and really look at removing barriers and creating incentives at the local government land use level for affordable housing. So we have two main programs from this bill, House Bill 21-1271. That's the Planning Grant Program. So the Planning Grant Program funds work to help local governments understand their housing needs. So do things like conduct housing needs assessments, market studies, inventories, but it also is helping, and really the main function of the program is to help local governments change their policy and regulatory environment to make it easier to develop affordable housing. So it funds adoption of different strategies. So that looks like code updates in your land use or zoning code, altering your annexation policies, creating an inclusionary housing ordinance, all these different strategies that local governments can take to, again, remove those barriers for affordable housing in a way that works for them in their context. So that's the planning grant program. We have almost $7 million, and we just closed our second round yesterday, but I can confirm there will be a third round, and the next deadline will be Monday, December 6th. So there is a good amount of time for folks to put together your application. So if you have any questions about planning grant program, feel free to reach out to me and I can get you connected with our team. I'll throw my email in the chat. It's also on the website. And then the other kind of half of the program is called the Incentives Grant Program. And this is really a grant opportunity. Sorry about that. The grant opportunity to fund gap funding for actual affordable housing projects. So if you have affordable housing projects in your pipeline that you're needing help with funding for, please reach out to us and we can talk to you about that program as well. And the two really do work in tandem to help communities with that critical planning work. And also then there's the incentives money to go towards actual projects. So please check out our website, but if you have any questions, shoot me an email and I'll get you hooked up with the appropriate person. Thanks.
Thank you, Christy.
I've got a question for Christy on what she just said. So Christy, if you don't get the planning grant, are you still able to go for the incentives grant?
Yeah, good question. So the way that the programs work kind of in tandem is that there's prerequisite planning work required before a community is eligible to apply for an incentives grant. So according to the bill, you have to have at least 3 of this list of qualifying strategies adopted. So the planning grant program is really there to help communities get these strategies adopted so that they're eligible to apply for implementation money for actual projects. But if a community has done that planning work on their own, they're welcome to come in and apply for an incentives grant. So you don't need necessarily to utilize both programs. And we do have an LOI. Oh, I see Carrie's on too. Carrie's also helping with the programs. We have an LOI out right now that's a very simple Google form, and it's due November 1st. And we can, Carrie, if you could put the link to the LOI in the chat now that I'm thinking of it. We will be opening our first round of incentives grants, which again is that implementation money for projects. And this is really for communities that are, have kind of shovel-ready projects that are very committed and have done that prerequisite planning work on their own. So they don't really need the planning grant program. And what that LOI does, it's a very simple form. It's a Google form. It's not meant to take that much time, but it'll set up a pre-application meeting with our staff. And then we can discuss your project more in detail. So if you are in a local government and you've been working on affordable housing, you have some projects in your pipeline, please reach out to us and we can get you that LOI. Yeah, I was not super prepared. Sorry. Carrie, anything you want to add?
No, yeah, you covered it all. We're interested in just reaching out to as many communities as possible. So if it is even something you just want information on, email either of us and we can just get a call set up and see which program is correct for you guys and move forward from there.
Any other questions or anything anybody wants to share with similar experiences or experiences with some of the things that we put forward today that they think might be helpful for others?
I have some questions about the housing support for local governments. Are you expecting most local governments to act as a pass-through agent because most of the developers are private entities, or are you expecting the local governments to have the capacity to do their own affordable house building?
Yeah, so for the 1271 program, good question. So the bill outlines that we have to award directly to local governments. So the local government themselves would need to be the applicant and the grantee, but they can transfer those funds to, say, a nonprofit developer or their housing authority or whoever's actually developing the project. So the local government needs to be the fiscal agent, but they don't need to necessarily own or develop the housing themselves. And we expect that they'll be working with partners in the affordable housing space, but that's just how the money has to be transferred.
Sure. a lot of the messaging that I'm trying to really see how we could utilize these funds in my region. And it's really difficult because I'm just like, we don't even have an opportunity within the local government to get involved in housing development. We would really like to support that, you know, paving roads, sewer lines, things like that. It's just from that housing component, it's just the expertise, we're just so far away from that and don't even have, you know, people, consultants. Of course, we have private housing developers that are, you know, courting different communities, but it's like, how can we as a government or multiple governments help with this process? Because realistically, our municipalities aren't going to be building houses.
Yeah, and certainly capacity is an issue, I think, at the forefront of a lot of people's minds. So with these programs, we have seen some COGS help to kind of rally different regions, counties, and municipalities. The COG itself could not apply to the program, but they can kind of add that capacity and add that infrastructure. So that's one option. Also, housing authorities, again, can kind of do that backbone work to put the project together, and then the local government basically just needs to, you know, fill it out, the application. But we're really trying to provide that level of technical assistance and help with these applications. And so I don't want, if there's interest and there's projects in the pipeline and there's local support, especially that local political support for affordable housing, we don't want capacity concerns to keep folks from applying. So I'd recommend you still reach out to us and we can try to facilitate that conversation with the local governments.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on 1271? Over here. Thanks for letting us plug our programs.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, we should have included you guys in a little bit longer session because it is a topic of extreme interest. What's the administrative fees that are allowed in 1271 for local governments to administer the grant?
Great question, Gail. So the planning grant program, unfortunately, does not allow admin. And really, again, that program is to help local governments hire consultants to do that technical work. So those code updates, housing needs assessments, things like that. There is an administrative allowance for the incentives grant program, which is that implementation money. And we put in the program guidelines that admin does need to be approved by DOLA, but we put in a suggested amount of 15%. And those awards are expected to be larger, anywhere from $500,000 up to potentially $3 million. So we understand that, you know, the level of complexity with an affordable housing development, plus that larger award amount compared to, you know, the planning grants are more in like the $100,000 range. You know, we understand that there needs to be project admin associated with that. So there is admin built into the incentives grant program.
So glad you guys were on the call. Oh, sure.
Yeah, no,
Sorry, Christy, what is the timing of the deadline of these projects? I think we're all just being buried in timelines and the no availability of anything to build homes right now too. So are there pretty robust deadlines?
Yeah, so our expenditure deadline from the bill is June 30th of 2024. So we have more time than Main Street's Open for Business program, but it's essentially a 3 fiscal year program. So all of our funds need to be spent by summer of 2024.
Thank you. I won't talk anymore now. Thank you.
You're always welcome to talk, Lillian.
These are good questions.
I need some homes built.
Will, were we able to get any survey results? And can you show those or no?
Yeah, I can show them.
Okay, just out of curiosity, and we'll see what we might be talking about here soon. Again, we still have 4 more minutes. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I think many of us have a 12 o'clock to hop onto.
I think I just shared them. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
Why am I the only one who can't see it?
So we've got some follow-up that we can do on the Main Street program. We got 100% on Main Street Open for Business. Everyone that responded is interested. Hopefully, if we get funding in the future, there'll be a little bit longer time frame here for implementation. We've got some really good response and follow-up on SHF and tax credits. Energy funding, yep, interested in CPACE, CCEF, and REAP. Stacking funds, Larry did a great job. Yes, people want to learn how to do that more and understand it. Medium response to low on bids, DDAs, and URAs. I know DCI has done extensive outreach in that. Local facade programs, about half of you said you'd be interested in learning more about one. Maybe we can plug in some of our communities that have a good one and kind of share how they actually set that up. The RTAP program, we can definitely follow up on that with the OEdit. Everyone wants to learn more about the Colorado Resiliency Office, and good response on wanting to bring somebody in on Ready as well. And then everybody's looking forward to more in-depth webinars. You know, there was a couple of more programs that we didn't even have time to get into today because we'd kind of planned on doing the polls and taking a minute, you know, between the different opportunities. But there's also the community, the other part of Senate Bill 21252, where MSOB, Main Street Open for Business, came from, is the community revitalization grant through OEdit for kind of developing creatives hub in your historic district or your downtown with some workforce housing. And there's also opportunities to the Colorado Tourism Office and also the Outdoor Recreation Office. But we kind of didn't have enough time to present everything. And Tracy, kudos to Tracy. She's the one that had this brainchild of bringing these resources to everybody for a high level view.
Well, my other title for this was, though there are some of you who did receive our grant on the call, is so you didn't get MSOB funds. And so we were just trying to share some similar funding with our communities on that.
Let me throw a plug in real quick. So the next round for State Historical Fund grants, which is really what you should go after first before you go after the CCEF money and then the tax credits. It's coming up February 1st is when you would have your application in by noon. The bigger grant is due on August 1st and it's for up to $250,000, but you have time between now and then, between now and February, to get in an application. So I would, advise, your locals to really think about this. Get in contact with me if you want more information.
Yeah, Jillian, and I was going to say, and just because you received funds doesn't mean everybody in your community received funds, right? And so I think it's great to keep helping your businesses and building owners and helping your downtowns and communities. You guys are awesome, and I think we're all on the comms team and in CDO and DOLA just privileged to support what you all do every day, the real hard work.
Well said. All right.
So, we'll let
We
you all
are at
go.
noon.
Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a great day.
Thanks.
Bye.